A single act of kindness can be a death sentence or a coronation. For Clara Hayes, a struggling waitress, life was about surviving the next shift and protecting her brother. But a frantic night at St. Jude's Hospital changed everything. She donated blood to save a dying man, a ghost in the emergency room. She had no idea that her rare blood type now flowed through the veins of Leo Salvatore, the most powerful and dangerous mafia boss in the city. He wakes with a new obsession, finding the angel who saved him. And when a Salvatore owes a debt, payment is always demanded in blood or in vows. A coffee cup shattered on the tiled floor of the Starlight Diner, the sound slicing through the midday hum of conversation and sizzling grease. Clara Hayes didn't even flinch. She grabbed a dustpan and broom from the busing station, her movements automatic, her expression as flat as the day-old soda she'd just been admonished for. "Watch where you're going, sweetheart," the trucker grunted, not bothering to look up from his paper. "Sorry," Clara muttered, the apology tasting like ash. She'd been on her feet for 10 hours, this double shift covering for a sick co-worker, and the $2.50 tip he'd eventually leave wouldn't even cover the cost of the mug. This was her life. A revolving door of exhausted faces, the smell of burnt coffee permanently etched into her senses, and an ache in her lower back that had become a constant companion. She was 24, but some days, especially days like this, she felt closer to 40. Every dollar she earned was meticulously divided, rent for her tiny, drafty apartment, the utility bills she juggled like a failing circus act, and the most important non-negotiable expense, the pile of money for her younger brother, Owen. Owen was 17, bright and asthmatic, with a heart condition that required a pharmacy's worth of medications. Clara was his only family, their parents gone long enough for the grief to settle into a dull, familiar weight. Protecting him, giving him a chance at the college life she'd forfeited, was the only thing that propelled her through the 14-hour days and the crushing loneliness of her nights. Finally, at 11 p.m., she was free. She hung up her stained apron, the fabric stiff with sweat and ketchup, and counted her tips, $64. Pathetic. It wasn't enough to cover the prescription refill and the late payment on the electricity. She'd have to choose. The lights could wait. Owen's health couldn't. She bypassed her apartment, her tired legs carrying her toward the only place in the city that was brighter than the diner, St. Jude's Hospital. The night air was heavy, carrying the scent of rain and exhaust. She clutched her purse, the small wad of cash feeling insufficient, a flimsy shield against the world. She was just walking past the pharmacy window, about to slide her payment through the slot, when the ambulance bay erupted. The sliding doors of the emergency room burst open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. 2 ambulances, sirens dying with a whine, had disgorged their contents simultaneously. But one gurney was the center of the storm. "GSW to the abdomen! Massive hemorrhage!" a paramedic yelled, bagging a patient whose face was obscured by an oxygen mask. "Lost vitals twice en route. He's crashing." Doctors and nurses swarmed, a flurry of blue scrubs. Clara instinctively pressed herself against the wall, trying to become invisible, just another piece of the sterile beige hallway. They rushed the gurney past her. She saw a flash of a stark white shirt, soaked in a terrifying, impossible amount of red. She saw a strong hand, fingers stained, fall limp over the side. "We need trauma 1 clear," someone shouted. "Get me O-neg. Wait, his chart says AB negative. Does he have a chart?" "He's a John Doe." "We don't have AB negative in the bank. We used the last of it on the pediatric case this morning," a nurse cried out, her voice tight with panic. "Someone check the donor list. Call the Red Cross. We don't have time. He's bleeding out faster than we can pump it in. We need a direct donation, right now." The words hit Clara before she could process them. AB negative. She knew those words. They were on the little red and white card she kept tucked in her wallet, a relic from a college blood drive she'd done for a free t-shirt. It was the rarest blood type. She felt her feet move before her brain gave the command. She stepped out from the wall, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the din. "I am," she said. The head nurse, a woman with weary eyes named Helen, snapped her head toward Clara. "You are what?" "AB negative," Clara said, her voice stronger now. She pulled the laminated card from her wallet. "I'm AB negative. I can donate." Helen didn't hesitate. She grabbed Clara's arm with a grip like steel. "You, come with me. Now, have you eaten? Any diseases? Are you clean?" "Yes, I ate at work. I'm clean. I'm healthy." "Good enough." Clara was shoved into a prep room. A different nurse took her vitals while another prepped a needle that looked more like a railroad spike. Clara barely registered the pinch. She just watched the wall, her mind blank with exhaustion. She wasn't saving a man. She was just solving a problem. She was a waitress. This was just another order to be filled. She sat there for what felt like an hour, the rhythmic squeak of the donation machine lulling her into a half-sleep. A dark, vital part of her was draining into a plastic bag. When it was over, Helen reappeared, her face slightly softer. "You did a good thing, kid. A really good thing. He's in surgery. You might have just saved his life." "That's good," Clara murmured, feeling dizzy. "We need your name, just for the records. Anonymity is guaranteed, of course, unless you choose otherwise. Clara Hayes." Helen gave her a cup of orange juice and 2 cookies. "You sit here for 15 minutes. Then you go home and sleep. Understood?" Clara nodded. She drank the juice, the sugar hitting her system like a jolt. She didn't want to wait. She just wanted her bed. She slipped out of the room when the nurse turned her back, paid for Owen's medication at the window, and walked out into the pre-dawn chill. She never saw the patient's face. She never learned his name. She was just the St. Jude's ghost, leaving behind nothing but a name on a chart and a bag of the rarest blood on earth. She went home, fell into bed, and forgot all about it. But in the heavily guarded penthouse suite of St. Jude's private wing, Leo Salvatore's life was just beginning anew, his body accepting the blood of a stranger, and a lion never forgets a debt. Leo Salvatore woke to the smell of antiseptic and the muted, infuriating beep of a heart monitor. His first sensation was a deep, searing fire in his abdomen. His second was rage. He opened his eyes. The room was not his own. It was pale, sterile, and flooded with the unwelcome grey light of morning. "He's awake." The voice was low, familiar. Leo turned his head. Marco Bianchi, his consigliere, stood by the window, his bespoke suit uncharacteristically rumpled. Marco was a man of the old school, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much to ever be surprised. He looked surprised. "Status," Leo rasped. His throat felt like it was full of gravel. "You're in the private wing at St. Jude's," Marco said, moving closer. "You've been in surgery for 9 hours. 2 bullets in the abdomen, 1 grazed your ribs. You were gone, Leo, on the table. They lost you twice." Leo absorbed this. The attack. It came back to him in sharp, ugly flashes. The meeting at the trattoria, a supposedly neutral ground. Vincent Moretti, his chief rival, smiling that greasy smile. Then the waiters, Moretti's men, drawing weapons. It was a setup, a clumsy, bloody setup. His own men had returned fire, but he'd been hit first. "Moretti," Leo demanded. alive, slipped out the back. His operation is in chaos, but he's in the wind. We've lost 3 men. Marco paused. The doctors said it was a miracle. You'd lost too much blood. The hospital bank was empty of your type. Leo stared at the IV stand. It wasn't saline. A bag of dark red blood was slowly dripping into his arm. So, where did this come from? That, Marco said, a strange note in his voice, is the interesting part. A walk-in, a civilian, donated on the spot and left. Leo processed this. In his world, nothing was free. An act of kindness was just a transaction that hadn't been billed yet. A civilian, saving his life, was a loose end. A massive, untidy loose end. Who? A nurse said her name was Clara Hayes. That's all we have. She gave her name for the records and disappeared before the surgery was even over. Clara Hayes. Leo tested the name. It felt foreign, soft. Find her. Leo, Marco said, his tone cautious. She's a civilian, a ghost. Let her be one. We sent her a gift, a car, money. We wipe the records and she's forgotten. It's cleaner. Cleaner. Leo pushed himself up on his elbows, ignoring the shriek of protest from his muscles. I was dead. My blood was on the floor of a restaurant, and some ghost filled me back up. I want to see her. I want to know who she is. I don't like debts, Marco, especially ones I don't understand. Find her. Marco knew that tone. It was the lion's voice, the one that didn't accept no. He nodded, sharp and curt. I'll have our people look into it. Not our people, Leo countered. You. I want you to do it. Quietly. I want to know where she eats, where she sleeps, and what she's afraid of. As you wish, Capo. While the Salvatore organization's most trusted man began the delicate hunt, Clara Hayes was back at the Starlight Diner, arguing with her landlord over the phone. I told you, Mr. Henderson, the check will be there on the 1st. Yes, I know it's the 3rd. My brother. He was sick. She was juggling a coffee pot and her cell phone, the diner packed with the breakfast rush. She felt drained, more tired than usual. The blood donation had taken a toll she hadn't anticipated. Her shift ended, and she walked the familiar, weary blocks to her apartment, a pre-war walk-up with faulty plumbing and paper-thin walls. As she approached, she saw him. Donny, the weasel, Rizzo. He was leaning against her doorway, a small, rat-faced man in a cheap leather jacket. He was a local loan shark, the bottom feeder she'd been forced to go to when Owen's condition first worsened, and the hospital demanded a deposit she didn't have. Her stomach turned to ice. Donny, I don't have it. That's not what you said last week, Clara, he sneered, chewing on a toothpick. You said today. Today is today. The VIG is stacking up. I know, I needed medication for my brother. I'll have it by the 15th, I promise. Donny took a step closer, invading her space. She could smell the stale cigarettes on his breath. See, the guys I work for, they don't like promises. They like payments. And when they don't get payments, they like collateral. He glanced up toward her apartment window, where Owen's light was on. That brother of yours, he's a frail kid, right? Be a shame if his condition got worse. A cold, primal fear seized Clara. This was a line that had never been crossed. You stay away from him. Then pay me, he snapped, his voice rising. $500, Clara. By tomorrow. Or I stop being nice. He shoved past her, knocking her shoulder hard against the brick. She watched him swagger down the street, her entire body shaking. $500. She might as well be trying to find $5 million. She had $64 in her pocket and a bank account hovering at 0. She stumbled up the stairs, unlocked her door, and forced a smile for Owen, who was at the kitchen table studying. Hey, you're home late, he said, looking up. "You look awful, Clara." "Just tired, kiddo," she said, ruffling his hair. "Just tired." She went into her bedroom and locked the door, sliding down it until she was sitting on the floor. For the first time in years, she cried. She was trapped. There was no way out. Across town, in the Salvatore penthouse, a fortress of glass and steel overlooking the city, Marco Bianchi placed a thin manila folder on Leo's desk. Leo was out of the hospital, against medical advice, and was standing in a silk robe, wincing as he looked at the city lights. "Clara Hayes," Marco said. Leo opened the folder. Inside was a grainy photo of her, taken from across the street, wiping down a diner counter. She looked exhausted. 24, Marco reported. "Orphan. Works 60 hours a week at the Starlight Diner. Sole guardian of a 17-year-old brother, Owen Hayes. The brother has a severe heart murmur and chronic asthma. Medical bills are extensive." Leo looked at the photo. This was his savior, a tired girl in a cheap uniform. "She's clean," Marco continued. "No vices, no connections. Except one." Leo looked up. "She owes $500 to a local shark, a nobody named Donnie Rizzo. He's been pressing her, threatening the brother. She's desperate." Leo Salvatore looked at the picture of the girl who, for no reason, had saved his life, and he looked at the name of the man who was threatening her. He saw the board, he saw the pieces, and he saw his move. "Rizzo," Leo said, his voice a soft growl. "He's the key." "You want us to take care of him?" Marco asked. "It's done." "No," Leo said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. He hadn't felt this alive in years. "This isn't business, Marco. This is a debt, and a debt must be paid in person." He closed the folder. "Get the car, and find out what kind of flowers she likes. We're going to pay Miss Hayes a visit." Clara didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills until the sun came up, her mind racing in a frantic, useless circle. How could she get $500 by noon? She called her boss, begging for an advance. He laughed. She thought about pawning the one piece of jewelry she owned, her mother's thin gold locket. It might fetch $50. Not enough. By 11 a.m., she was a wreck, knots of terror tightening in her stomach. She heard Owen leave for school, his cheerful, "Bye, Clara," sounding like a death knell. She was supposed to protect him, and she had failed. At 11:30 a.m., a knock echoed through the small apartment. It wasn't Donnie's aggressive bang. It was a firm, polite, patient knock. She froze. Maybe if she stayed quiet, they would go away. The knock came again, heavier this time. She crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't Donnie. It was two men, both built like mountains, wearing immaculate black suits. They stood on either side of her door, perfectly still, staring straight ahead. She saw, reflected in the hallway mirror, a third man standing back. He was taller, thinner, and though his features were distorted by the lens, she could feel the intensity of his gaze. "Miss Hayes," a voice called. It was deep, smooth, and held an accent she couldn't place. Old world, elegant. "We know you are in there. Please open the door. We are not here to harm you." She backed away. "Go away. I don't know you." "My name is Leo Salvatore," the voice said, calmly. "I believe you and I share something. I was a patient at St. Jude's." St. Jude's? The blood donation. The John Doe. Her hand, trembling, moved to the deadbolt. This was about the donation. Maybe he was here to thank her. Maybe he was rich. She unlatched the lock and opened the door a crack. The man standing in the hall took her breath away. He was handsome in a way that was almost brutal. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and dark, piercing eyes that seemed to see right through her. He wore a dark grey suit that probably cost more than her apartment. He was leaning lightly on a silver-topped cane, the only sign of the injury he'd sustained. "Miss Hayes," he said, his eyes scanning her face. "May I come in?" Before she could answer, a familiar, grating voice yelled from the stairwell. "Clara, I'm here for my money." Donnie Rizzo was bounding up the stairs, his face red and angry. He stopped dead when he saw the three men at her door. His bravado evaporated, replaced by a sickly, pale fear. "Who the hell are you?" Donnie stammered. Leo Salvatore didn't even look at him. His eyes remained locked on Clara's. "Is this the man who has been bothering you?" Clara, mute with shock, just nodded. Leo turned his head slowly, a predator assessing prey. "Mr. Rizzo, I am Leo Salvatore." The name hit Donnie like a physical blow. He stumbled back, his face ashen. Everyone in the city knew that name. "Mr. Salvatore, I didn't know she was with you. I swear. It was just a small loan. I was just leaving." "You were threatening her brother," Leo stated. "It wasn't a question. No, just business." Leo took one step forward. Donnie flinched and fell down a step. "Your business is concluded. You will forget Miss Hayes's name. You will forget this address. You will forget the $500. In fact, you will leave this city. Tonight. If I see you, or hear of you, or even think you are breathing the same air as I am, I will have my associates here escort you to the bottom of the Hudson. Am I clear? Crystal." "Yes, Mr. Salvatore. Crystal, I'm gone. I'm gone." Donnie scrambled to his feet and fled down the stairs, tripping over himself in his haste. Clara was left staring at the man who had just dismantled her biggest fear in under 30 seconds. Leo turned back to her, his expression softening, though his eyes remained intense. "My apologies for that unpleasantness. May I?" He gestured to the open door. Numbly, she stepped aside and let him in. The two bodyguards remained in the hall. Leo Salvatore stepped into her tiny living room, and the space seemed to shrink, overwhelmed by his presence. He glanced at the stacks of bills, the worn-out sofa, the picture of her and Owen. "You saved my life, Miss Hayes," he said, turning to her. "I was told Clara Hayes has donated blood. I had to see the angel who pulled me back from the brink." "I was just there," she stammered. "I'm glad you're okay." "I am okay," he said. "Because of you. I am a man who pays his debts." He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a check. He placed it on her kitchen table. "This is for you, for your trouble, for everything." Clara looked at the check. Her eyes went wide. The number was $250,000. It was an impossible sum. It was freedom. It was college for Owen, a new apartment, new lives. She could breathe. She stared at it, and then, to her own astonishment, she pushed it back toward him. "I can't accept this." Leo looked genuinely surprised. "I beg your pardon?" "I didn't do it for money," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "I did it because you needed help. Taking this, it makes it dirty. I don't want it. I just want you to go. Please." Leo Salvatore stared at her for a long, silent moment. He wasn't angry. He looked fascinated. He had offered her a fortune, and this girl who was drowning in debt had refused him. "You are an extraordinary woman, Clara Hayes," he said softly. He sat down at her small kitchen table, as if he owned the place. "You're also a naive one. You've seen what's out there. Men like Rizzo? They are a symptom. This world is designed to crush people like you and your brother." "I protect my brother," she said, her chin lifting. "You try," he corrected her, not unkindly. "But you're failing. You're trading your life, hour by hour, and you are still drowning. I just saved you from one shark. There will be another, and another. He leaned forward. I am offering you a different kind of payment, a permanent one. I told you, I don't want your money. I'm not offering you money, Leo said. I am offering you me. My name. My protection. Clara's heart hammered. What are you talking about? You saved my life, Clara, he said, his voice dropping to an intimate murmur. Your blood runs in my veins. In my culture, that is a bond stronger than steel. I cannot simply walk away, and I will not allow the person who saved me to be devoured by the world I inhabit. He stood up, towering over her. Here is my proposal. Marry me. Clara laughed, a short, hysterical sound. You're insane. I am entirely serious, he said, his face grim. A marriage. In name, for now. A contract. You will become Clara Salvatore. You will live in my home. You will want for nothing. Your brother will have the best doctors, the best schools, and he will be protected by the full force of my organization. He will never know a day of fear again. No man like Donny Rizzo will ever look at you twice. And in return, she whispered, terrified. In return, Leo said, gently touching the locket at her throat. You will be mine. You will be by my side. You will be my wife, my responsibility. My debt will be paid, not with a check, but with a vow. You saved my life. I will secure yours. This is crazy. This is a prison. It is a cage, Leo corrected her. A beautiful, gilded cage, yes. But look around you, Clara. You are already in a prison. The walls are just made of unpaid bills and desperation. I am offering you a stronger one where you and your brother are safe inside. He placed a black business card on the table. You have 24 hours to decide. If you say no, I will walk away. My debt will be unpaid, and you will be alone. Donny Rizzo is gone, but the world is full of him. If you say yes, a car will be here tomorrow at noon to pick you up, and you will never be afraid again. He walked to the door, paused and looked back. I hope you make the wise choice, Clara. And then he was gone, leaving Clara alone with an impossible choice. The scent of his expensive cologne, and the $250,000 check he had left on the table as an afterthought. The next 24 hours were the longest of Clara's life. The check sat on her table, a silent, screaming temptation. She picked it up a dozen times. This was the answer. She could take this, take Owen, and run. Disappear. But where? Leo Salvatore found her in a city of 8 million. He found her from a single name on a hospital chart. He had dismissed a violent criminal with a single word. If she took his money and ran, she wouldn't just be a debtor. She would be a thief. And she had no doubt that his punishment for theft would be far worse than his solution for a debt. She looked at the card. Leo Salvatore. Just a name. No title, no company. It didn't need one. She thought about his words. You are already in a prison. He was right. She was a slave to the diner, to her landlord, to Owen's failing health. She was terrified every time she walked home at night. Donny Rizzo was gone, but the fear he represented, the powerlessness, was still there, clinging to her like a shroud. What was Leo offering? A different kind of slavery, certainly. You will be mine. But he was also offering safety. Real, absolute, ironclad safety for Owen. He wasn't just offering to pay the bills, he was offering to erase the entire system that created them. When Owen came home, he was bubbling with excitement about a school field trip. He looked healthy, happy, and completely oblivious to the fact that his entire life had nearly been destroyed that morning. Clara looked at his bright, innocent face, and her decision solidified. She couldn't protect him. Not really. But Leo Salvatore could. She didn't pack. What was there to take? Her faded jeans, her 2 diner uniforms. She put on her best and only dress, a simple navy blue cotton, and her mother's locket. She left the check on the table. She would not come to him as a charity case. She would come as the other half of a bargain. At 11:58 a.m., she looked out her window. A black Rolls-Royce Ghost idled at her curb, so out of place in her neighborhood it looked like a spaceship. At 12 p.m. she walked downstairs. The driver, one of the mountains from the day before, opened the door for her without a word. The inside was silent, smelling of new leather. The car drove her not to a penthouse, but to a vast, old-world estate in the Riverdale section of the Bronx, hidden behind 20-foot stone walls and a wrought-iron gate. The house was a fortress, a stone and ivy-covered mansion that overlooked the Hudson. She was led inside, not by a bodyguard, but by a housekeeper. The interior was dark, rich with polished wood, oil paintings, and a silence so profound it was deafening. Leo was waiting for her in a study that was larger than her entire apartment. He was not in a suit, but in a simple black cashmere sweater and trousers. He looked softer. "You came?" he said. He sounded pleased. "I came," she confirmed, her voice small. "And the check?" "It's on my table. I told you. I don't want your money." A slow smile touched his lips. "Good." He gestured to a man sitting in the corner, someone she hadn't noticed. It was Marco Bianchi, the consigliere. He held a leather-bound folder. "This is our agreement," Leo said. "It is, for all legal purposes, a prenuptial agreement. It states that you are marrying me of your own free will. It outlines what I provide, a new, secure, and undisclosed residence for your brother. Full payment for his education at any university he chooses. A trust fund in his name, managed by the legitimate law firm of Thompson, Finch and Associates, which he cannot access until he is 25, and which is completely firewalled from my other businesses. It guarantees his safety and well-being, indefinitely." "And for me?" Clara asked. "For you?" Leo said, stepping closer. "It provides everything. Clothes, housing, food, security. You will be Mrs. Salvatore. My name will be your shield." "And the terms?" she whispered. "What do I do?" "You exist," Leo said simply. "You will be by my side when I require it. You will be discreet. You will be loyal. You will not ask questions about my business. And you will not, ever, contact anyone from your old life. That life is over. That is the price, Clara." It was a complete erasure. She would cease to be Clara Hayes. She looked at the pen. She thought of Owen. She picked it up and signed the name Clara Hayes for the last time. "Good," Leo said. "The judge will be here in an hour to perform the civil ceremony. Marco will show you to your room." Marco Bianchi stood. His eyes were not warm like Leo's. They were cold, assessing, and filled with suspicion. He didn't see an angel. He saw a complication. "This way, signora," he said, the title sounding like an insult. He led her up a winding staircase to a bedroom that was larger than the entire Starlight Diner. It was beautiful, decorated in creams and blues, with a private balcony overlooking the river. "Your new life, Signora Salvatore," Marco said, his voice flat. "A car has already been dispatched to pick up your brother from school. He is being told he won't be returning to the apartment, that you have come into a substantial inheritance. He will be settled in a private condominium in Westchester tonight, with a full-time governess and tutor. He will be safe." "When can I see him?" Clara asked, panic rising. "When it is deemed safe," Marco replied. "Leo Mr. Salvatore is a man with many enemies. Your brother's safety depends on his anonymity. Your association with him is now a liability. You will speak on the phone, but visits will be difficult. The cage door slammed shut. She was safe. Owen was safe. But she was a prisoner. That night, after a sterile 10-minute ceremony in the study, she found herself alone in the massive bedroom. Leo had not joined her. He had simply nodded, said, "Welcome to the family, Clara," and disappeared into his office with Marco. She was Clara Salvatore. She was dressed in a silk nightgown that had been laid out for her. She was surrounded by wealth she couldn't comprehend, and she had never felt so terrifyingly alone. The only sound was the distant hum of the city, a city she was no longer a part of. The first few weeks were a disorienting blur of luxury and isolation. Clara's world shrank to the confines of the Salvatore estate. She had a wardrobe of clothes she was afraid to wear, was served meals she didn't know how to pronounce, and was followed everywhere by a silent bodyguard named Anthony. She was, as Leo had promised, Mrs. Salvatore. But she was not his wife. Leo was a ghost in his own home. He left before she woke and returned late at night. They lived in the same massive house, but their paths rarely crossed. When they did, he was polite, distant, and assessing. He would inquire if she was comfortable, if she needed anything. He never touched her. The proposal had been a contract, and Leo, it seemed, was content to honor only its most basic terms. Her only lifeline was the nightly 10-minute phone call with Owen. He was ecstatic. He was in a gated community, a luxury condo, had his own room, a tutor for his SATs, and a doctor who had him on new medication that made him feel 100 times better. He bought the inheritance story completely. "I can't believe it, Clara," he'd gushed. "You did it. You got us out." "I did, kiddo," she'd reply, her throat tight, staring out her window at the armed guards patrolling the perimeter. "I got us out." Her loneliness was a physical ache. The only person who spoke to her with any regularity was Marco Bianchi, and his words were knives. "The Signora is enjoying her reading?" he asked one afternoon, finding her in the vast 2-story library. "Yes, thank you, Marco." He lingered, pretending to inspect a bookshelf. "The capo is a generous man," he said, his back to her. "He values novelty, but he is also a traditional man. He values loyalty. He does not suffer liabilities." "I am not a liability," Clara said, her grip tightening on the book. "You are a waitress," Marco said, turning. His face was devoid of expression. "You are from a world of weakness. You saved his life, and for that he owes you. But do not mistake his gratitude for substance. You are here because he is honorable, but his honor is to his family, the one of blood. You are an arrangement. Remember that." He left her, the warning hanging in the air. She was an outsider, a pet. The isolation began to change her. The fear that had defined her old life was gone, but in its place, a cold, hard anger was growing. She was tired of being a ghost. She was tired of being handled. That night, she didn't wait in her room. She waited in his study. Leo arrived just after 2:00 a.m., looking exhausted. He stopped when he saw her, sitting in the leather armchair by the fire. "Clara, you should be asleep." "I can't sleep," she said, standing. She was wearing a silk robe, but for the first time she didn't feel exposed. This wasn't the deal. He raised an eyebrow. "I've kept my word. Your brother is safe. You are safe." "I'm in a cage," she shot back. "I'm your prisoner, not your wife. You brought me here to what? To sit in a library until I rot? Your man, Marco, looks at me like I'm something you stepped in. The guards treat me like a child." Leo watched her, a new spark in his eyes. This was not the terrified girl from the diner. This was a woman with a spine. "What is it you want, Clara?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. "I want to know what this is. If I am Mrs. Salvatore, then let me be that. I'm not afraid of your world. I've been living in the sewers of it my whole life. I'm just tired of being treated like a secret." A slow smile spread across Leo's face. He walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, and handed one to her. She took it. "I wondered how long it would take," he said. "The fire I saw in the hospital. The girl who told me no." He sat opposite her. "You are right. This isolation was a test, to see if you would break, to see if Marco was right about you." "And is he?" "Marco is a man of the past," Leo said, sipping his drink. "He sees transactions. He doesn't see people. I am beginning to." He leaned forward, the distance between them shrinking. "You are not a secret, Clara. You are a puzzle. And I am a man with enemies. Vincent Moretti, the man who tried to kill me, is still out there. He's looking for a weakness. A new, unknown wife. You are my greatest weakness." "Then let me be your strength," she said, surprising herself with the words. "Stop hiding me. Let them see me. Let them see that you aren't weak at all. You are protected." Leo stared at her, the fascination from her apartment returning, but this time it was mixed with something new. Respect and affection. "There is a charity gala," he said. "The annual Police Benevolent Fund. All the pillars of the community will be there, including Moretti." "I'll go," she said. "It will be dangerous. He will see you. He will approach you. He will test you." "Let him," Clara said, taking a sip of the whiskey. It burned, but she didn't cough. "I'm tired of being afraid." Leo's smile was genuine now. "Very well. Tomorrow we will get you a dress. It is time, Signora Salvatore, for you to meet the family." The gala was a sea of false smiles and veiled threats. Clara, draped in emerald green silk and diamonds that felt like heavy, cold stones, clung to Leo's arm. He introduced her as "my wife Clara," and the shockwaves were visible. The whispers followed them. A waitress? Where did she come from? Then he appeared. Vincent Moretti. He was older than Leo, with a politician's smile and dead black eyes. "Leo, a miracle!" he boomed, kissing him on both cheeks. "To see you alive. And who is this vision?" "My wife, Clara," Leo said, his voice pleasant, his hand possessively on Clara's back. "A wife? You sly fox. You kept this a secret," Moretti said, taking Clara's hand. He held it a fraction of a second too long. "Clara, a beautiful name. Tell me, Clara, how does a dove like you end up with a lion like this?" Clara felt Leo tense. This was it, the test. She smiled, a sweet, cold smile she didn't know she possessed. "Even a lion needs a home, Mr. Moretti, and I've always found doves to be rather boring. I prefer the company of predators." Moretti's smile faltered. He had expected a simpering, terrified girl. He hadn't expected this. Clara leaned in, as if sharing a secret. "Besides, I've heard the doves in this city have a habit of getting eaten." She pulled her hand back and looped it through Leo's arm, reclaiming her place. Moretti's face hardened. He nodded, a curt, angry gesture. "A pleasure, Signora. Leo, enjoy your evening." He disappeared into the crowd. Clara let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Leo was looking down at her, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were blazing. "You did well," he murmured, his voice thick. "I just told the truth," she said. He guided her onto the dance floor. As he pulled her close, for the first time, his hand on her back was not just protective, it was possessive. It was the hand of a husband. "You are," he whispered into her hair, "full of surprises, Clara Salvatore. You have no idea. she whispered back. But across the room, Marco Bianchi watched them. He saw the way Leo looked at her, and his suspicion turned to ice-cold fear. The capo was compromised. The waitress was not just a liability, she was a threat to the family, and Marco would do anything to protect the family. The dynamic in the house shifted after the gala. The contract was dissolving, replaced by something unspoken and volatile. Leo was no longer a ghost. He took his dinners with her. He sought her out in the library. He'd sit and work in silence, just to be in the same room. He spoke of his childhood, of the weight of the name he'd inherited, of the father who had drilled into him that family is the only fortress. He was, she discovered, a man of profound loneliness, trapped in his own power, and Clara in turn found herself talking about Owen, about her dreams of being a chef, about the constant, grinding fear of her old life. He listened. He truly listened. The distance between them was closing. The line between his and hers was blurring. One evening, he found her asleep in the armchair in his study, a book open on her lap. He gently lifted her, and for the first time, he didn't take her to her room. He carried her to his. He laid her on the massive bed and simply watched her. He was terrified, not of Moretti, not of the police, but of this feeling. This civilian had breached his walls without firing a shot. His debt had become a dangerous, consuming affection. He made a decision. He had to prove to her, and to himself, that this was real. The next morning, he presented her with a new set of papers. "These are not from me," he said. "These are from Thompson, Finch and Associates, the trust for Owen. It's been finalized, but I've made a change." She read the document. He had doubled the amount, and he had signed full control of its dispersal over to her. Leo, this is too much." "It's not enough," he said, his voice rough. "It's firewalled, it's clean, it's his, and it's yours. Whatever happens to me, he is free. You are free. The debt is gone, Clara. This is a choice now." She looked up at him, the legal documents trembling in her hand. This was the true proposal, not the one made in fear in her apartment, but this one, an offering of trust. She reached up and touched his face. "Thank you, Leo." He caught her hand, lacing his fingers with hers. The moment was shattered by Marco Bianchi, who entered without knocking. "Capo, a situation. Urgent." Leo's face hardened, the capo mask slamming back into place. He gave Clara's hand a final squeeze and followed Marco out. But Marco had seen. He had seen the look on his boss's face, the touch of her hand, the trust fund. He'd heard about it from the lawyers. The lion was giving his kingdom to a waitress. Marco's loyalty was absolute, but it was to the Salvatore legacy, not just to the man. Leo was compromised. This woman had made him soft, made him weak. Moretti had seen it. The other families were whispering. This love would be the death of them all. Marco had to act. He had to fix the problem. He had to show Leo that the girl was a liability, that she couldn't handle the world she'd married into. He had to scare her away for her own good and for the good of the family. He made a call to a man he despised, but a man who was useful, a man who was stupid, greedy, and most importantly, terrified of the Salvatores. Donny the Weasel Rizzo. He met him in a steam-filled bathhouse in Queens. "You," Marco said, "have a chance to redeem yourself." "Mr. Bianchi," Donny stammered, "I left. I did what Mr. Salvatore said." "You're a rat, Donny, but I have a job for a rat. The capo's new wife, she's a problem. She doesn't understand the world. She needs a reminder of where she came from. She needs to be scared." "You want me to hurt her?" Donny's eyes widened. He'll kill me. You will not touch her, Marco hissed. You will grab her, scare her. You'll hold her for a few hours. Long enough for her to realize she's not safe. Long enough for the capo to realize she is his vulnerability. You'll let her go when I call. You do this, and your debt to the family is truly wiped. You're a free man. Donnie saw his opening, a way back in. Okay, I can do that. I can scare her. But Marco had miscalculated. He had assumed Donnie was just a coward. He didn't realize that Donnie was also ambitious, stupid, and paranoid. Donnie thought this was a test, a way for him to gain leverage. Why just scare the girl? Why not go for the real prize? Clara was restless. Leo was locked in meetings, the situation having made the house tense. She felt the old cage walls closing in. She did something she hadn't done since she arrived. She dismissed her bodyguard. Anthony, I want to walk in the garden, alone. Please, just for 10 minutes. He hesitated, but she was the signora. He reluctantly agreed, staying by the house. Clara walked the stone paths, breathing the fresh air. She was so lost in thought, so secure within the high walls that she didn't hear the sound of the shears cutting the lock on the service gate. She didn't hear the footsteps on the grass until it was too late. A hand, smelling of stale cigarettes and cheap cologne, clamped over her mouth. Long time no see, sweetheart, Donnie Rizzo's voice whispered in her ear. You're a hard lady to find. But you know, I think I'll get a lot more than $500 for you. He hadn't followed Marco's plan. He wasn't scaring her. He was taking her. But he too had made a miscalculation. He was grabbing Clara Salvatore. But the person who turned to fight him was Clara Hayes. She stomped her heel down, catching his instep. He roared. She jammed her elbow back, hitting his solar plexus. He lost his grip. "Anthony!" she screamed. Donnie panicked. This wasn't going to plan. He pulled a gun. Shut up! Shut up, or I swear I'll—" He never finished. A shot echoed through the garden, but it wasn't from Donnie's gun. Donnie Rizzo crumpled to the ground, a neat hole in his temple. Clara stared, shaking. Leo Salvatore was standing on the terrace, a sniper rifle, long, black, and lethally professional, in his hands. He was still in his suit, his face a mask of unbelievable fury. He ran to her, his own men swarming the garden, securing the breach. He reached her, checking her for injuries, his hands shaking. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" No, I'm fine." He pulled her into an embrace, so tight it stole her breath. I'm so sorry, Mia Cara. This is my fault, my world." But as he held her, Marco Bianchi ran up, his face ashen. "Capo, a breach, how—" Leo pulled away from Clara, his eyes turning to ice. He looked at Donnie's body, then he looked at his consigliere. "Donnie Rizzo," Leo said, his voice deadly calm. "A man I banished, a man who should be in another state. How, Marco, did he find his way onto my property? How did he know exactly when my wife would be alone?" Marco froze. The look on Leo's face was not confusion. It was an accusation. "Leo, you can't think—" "I think," Leo said, stepping toward him, "that you saw a waitress, a liability. I think you decided to fix my problem." "He was just supposed to scare her," Marco burst out, the truth tumbling from him. "To show you that she's soft, that this love will be your ruin. I did it for the family." "She is the family," Leo roared, the sound echoing through the garden. He grabbed Marco by the collar. "She has my blood. She has my name. And you, my oldest friend, you fed her to the wolves." "Leo, please," Marco begged. "There is no please," Leo said, his voice breaking with betrayal. He shoved Marco toward his bodyguards. "Get him out of my sight. Take him away. He is no longer family." Clara watched, horrified, as the men dragged a weeping, protesting Marco away. She looked at Donnie's body, then at Leo, who stood shaking, not with fear, but with a terrible, consuming rage. The line had been crossed. The proposal, the debt, the gala, it was all a prelude. This was the reality. This was blood. The silence after Marco's removal was heavy. Leo entered the study, his shirt stained with blood, his face defeated. "The contract is broken, Clara," he said, holding out a new passport and bank details. "I promised you safety, and I brought you death." He offered her a new identity, $5 million, and a private jet for her and Owen. "You will be free, genuinely free." Clara stared at the passport. Total freedom. She pushed it back. No. She refused to run. "I was never safe anywhere," she said, her voice ringing with strength. "Not in the diner. Not in my apartment. You don't get to protect me by sending me away." She stepped toward him. "I am not your liability. I am your wife. I am Clara Salvatore. And I am staying. Now, what are we going to do about Vincent Moretti?" Leo stared, finally seeing her. She wasn't his weakness. She was his fortress. He kissed her, a raw, claiming kiss that sealed their bond. Then he knelt. "Clara Salvatore," he vowed, "marry me. Not as a debt. Be my wife, my Regina, my family." She pulled him to his feet. "I already am. The vow was sealed. The debt is paid. But the story is just beginning. Clara Hayes may be gone, but Clara Salvatore has just claimed her throne. She traded a diner apron for a crown, but in the world of the Mafia, the crown is always heavy, and it's always stained with blood. She may have the boss's name, but can she survive his world? The other families won't accept a waitress as their queen, and Vincent Moretti is still out there, waiting to strike. The proposal was just the beginning. The war is next. Thank you for watching this story. If you want to see what happens next in Clara and Leo's dangerous romance, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to share this video with a friend who loves a good drama, and most importantly, subscribe and ring that notification bell. We post new stories every week, and you won't want to miss the next chapter in this dark and thrilling saga. What do you think Clara should do next? Let us know in the comments below.